check I made a mistake on. Yeah, I don't think it's to AES Indiana. So. I wrote the account number in the amount. I'm sitting there going, wow, that was a senior moment. $2,598.28. Instead of the $80 or whatever it was. I mean, you can cross it out and write in the initial one. I don't like to do that. These checks are free. Oh, I just learned something pretty interesting. Sometimes it pays to listen. That's true. Not the minister picking process. I guess the committee basically wasn't listened to. Committee had no input. Such a, I thought the committee was. That was always. I was told that by a family member of one of the people on the committee.
I don't know.
Here.
Here.
10:30. On time.
Exactly.
Can't beat that. With a stick.
I did not want to get up this morning. Did you know Kim was going to get me this? I saw it with her then. I saw it with her and I said, oh, no, that's too expensive. And somehow she's gone back. Yeah, but I saw this. Yep.
Oh, that's really true. Tyler kind of went to the company that we.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. It's good to see everybody here this morning. I hope you had a fantastic and safe holiday. We are, things are a little bit, I'm just going to give you a heads up, things are a little bit different this morning. We have this stranger that's going to be preaching for us this morning. David McElwain is going to be filling in for Lyle. And we also have a couple of very talented young ladies that are up in the booth today, making everything happen. So it's going to be a good day. I would encourage you, if you're able and willing, please join me in standing as we begin our time of worship this morning. I'm in the way, the bright and shining way. I'm in the glory land way. Telling the world that Jesus saves today. Yes, I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way. Heaven is nearer and the way groweth clearer, for I'm in the glory land way. Listen to the call, the gospel call today. Get in the glory land way. Wanderers come home, oh, hasten to obey, for I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way. Heaven is nearer and the way groweth clearer, for I'm in the glory land way. Onward I go, rejoicing in his love. I'm in the glory land way. Soon I shall see him in that home above. Oh, I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way. I'm in the glory land way.
shines clearer, for I'm in the glory land way.
Amen. Would you be seated, please?
His letter to the saints in Rome, the Apostle Paul tells them that he has been wanting to visit them for a long time. And he wants to visit them to preach the gospel to them, which may seem a little odd because the people that he's writing to and the people that he wants to go see and the people that he wants to preach the gospel to are already Christians. But he tells them he wants to preach the gospel to them because in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed. And it's important to understand that when the Apostle Paul uses that phrase, the righteousness of God, at least in this letter, what he is talking about is not the fact that whatever God does or whatever God thinks or that whatever God says is right in the sense that it is correct. But when Paul talks about the righteousness of God in his letter to the saints in Rome, he's talking about the fact that God is faithful to his covenant. He's talking about the fact that God is faithful to the covenant that he made with Abraham, that through Abraham all the nations of the earth would be blessed. And he's talking about the fact that God is faithful to the covenant that God made with Israel after he had delivered them from Egyptian bondage. That's what Paul means by the righteousness of God, that God is faithful to the covenant that he has made. But he starts out by talking about the fact that God's wrath has been poured out on all mankind. The Jews had the law of Moses, but they didn't keep it. The Gentiles knew there was a God because God's attributes could be seen by the things that he had made. So the Gentiles knew that there was a God, but they failed to acknowledge him as God. And so God basically said, fine, go live however you want to live. But God's wrath is poured out on the Jews because they failed to keep the law of Moses, and on the Gentiles because they refused to acknowledge God. But the point of all of that is not that God is mean. The point of all of that is that being in the condition of being right with God is not attainable by keeping the law. You could not be righteous by keeping the law of Moses, and you could not be righteous as a Gentile by acknowledging God as God and doing what he wants. You just couldn't do it because people sin. But he makes the point that righteousness with God, being right with God, not attainable by law keeping, but it is attainable by faith. And he uses Abraham as the example of that. And he talks about the fact that when God appeared to Abraham and told him to get up and move and leave his homeland, Abraham got up and moved. And when God told him to go out at night and look at the stars and try to count the stars of the heavens, and he said, so shall your descendants be. And when finally he had Isaac, the son of promise, and then God tells him to go kill him, Abraham was willing to kill him because Abraham firmly believed that God was going to fulfill his promise. And if that meant God had to raise Isaac from the dead, then he was just going to have to raise him from the dead. But Abraham's faith that God would keep his promises was counted to Abraham as righteousness. And then Paul makes a shift, and he talks about Adam and Jesus. And he talks about the fact that through Adam, through this one man, sin came into the world. And as a result of sin, death came into the world. And as a result of death, death spread to all men because all have sinned. And then he talks about Jesus. Through the one man, Jesus the Christ, grace came in. And as a result of the grace that came in through Jesus, justification came in. And as a result of the justification, life came in. And then Paul makes another little shift. And he talks about the law. And he makes a somewhat puzzling claim when he says that the law came in that sin might increase. And that as sin increased, the grace of God abounded even more to cover the sin. And then some people got the brilliant idea that, well, if when I sin, grace increases all the more, I'll just keep on sinning so that God's grace will grow even more and more, to which Paul goes, no, by no means. God forbid that you would think like that. How can we who have died to sin still live in it? But that brings up then another question that he deals with.